Well, hello everybody. We're working on facial features. Okay? So the thing I'm starting with a dark color, a medium color, and a light color. So red is kind of my medium. They're both kind of dark. That's okay. We don't have black in our paint. We're not going to use black. So I'm using blue, red, and white. So the thing about noses is it's super contrasty. All right? And you really got to pop out the highlights. So right now, I'm painting the side where the eyeball should go. I'm going to get there eventually. And then now I'm painting the nose in profile. So I'm using pure white. So as of right now, I haven't even washed off my brush once. So you kind of use the leftover paint on your brush. And do you see how I had too much white? I kind of dabbed it over to a spot where I needed to add white later. So I'm using pure white, and as I go, I just wipe off my brush. So that's pure white, and then it was just kind of a dirty brush, so that's where the other colors kind of came from. I'm kind of mixing that in. So underneath the nostril, you're going to get the pure dark color. So that's where the pure dark color. Now I brought that dark color up around the nostril and brought that up. You notice right next to the really dark part of the nostril, I put pure white to really enhance that contrast of the dark nostril. Now I'm bringing that white up into the area where I went a little too dark. I was a little too heavy-handed with the dark. So now I kind of brought that white up, and now I'm mixing in that blue and red to make a nice purple. And I brought that color, and I'm kind of putting it other places where I need a little more dark. Underneath the nose, you have something called, I think it's called the snot gully, the technical term. It's like a crease right underneath your nostril, so you got to really enhance that part. That's what I did just right there. I'm going to blend that in. You can see how I'm using my leftover white to kind of get the highlight over there. Now this is why it's kind of important to stay and paint for a good chunk amount of time. This first video was about 30 minutes. Now I'm going to the next one. This is the next day. And I'm sorry, I cut some of it off. It's good to kind of go in a good chunk of time because that way your paint stays wet. So now I'm going to blend into the other section of the face. And I'm going to pretend like there's no squares there. Okay, because remember we have 2 eyes, 2 noses, and 2 mouths. So I'm kind of bringing that nose up into the other nose of the eye and the nose up front. Because why have a straight line? Let's make it organic. Let's get them all to kind of flow together. So the bridge of the nose is going to be bright white. And then when you go into the eye, so this way, when I get into the eye, it's going to be pure dark. I move the camera up here soon, hopefully. There we go. All right, so now I'm getting underneath the eye. So I'm going to darken this up a little bit. Well, it's a highlight on that part, but then I'm going to get, there we go, the dark right in between where the nose and the eye comes down. Now the shape of the eye is a little difficult because the head is turned, okay? It's not our typical shape, so it's kind of like an oval. So you really have to exaggerate the highlights and shadows. And you can see the inside of my eyelid, too. Okay, I'm getting the whites of the eye, just pure white. And then when I have a dirty brush, I can just get some of those shadows in there. Okay, so now I'm adding the color part of the eye. I kind of want to make it darker, so I thought I'd use blue, but actually mixing blue with the red actually makes it a little darker, so I'm going to eventually darken that up with a little bit of red. But the highlights, you really got to highlight your eyes. Even if your eyes are darker, you still need to have some of those highlights. And then this is the dark part above the eyelid. So I switched to a smaller brush to do this part. So in there, I'm going to see the dark, thick part of my eye too. The thickness of my eyelid. I'm going to point that out. There we go. That's the thickness of my eyelid right there. I use pure white. And that's the crease of the eye. There's my eyelid. Eyes always look a little too big at first, but then when you add the thickness in, it makes them a little smaller. Get the highlights in there. Now I'm adding some eyelashes and some dark. So I'm sticking with the same amount of the same colors just because I have enough on my palette to use the same amount of colors. So I'm just going to stick with those colors. If you want to change up the colors and use some green and do some other colors, by all means you can. But we're going to kind of try to flow all these facial features in with each other.